From Stephen King, the master of suspense, comes his all-time bestseller.
Containment breach! We've had a major containment breach! Use the manual gate override, Cassius! Do it now! Cassius! You have to close the gate!
A deadly virus released by a government mistake. A frantic military willing to stop at nothing to cover up the terrible truth.
The so-called super flu does not exist.
What did you do? What did you people do?
As the plague sweeps out of control, a nation erupts, society crumbles, the end is here.
The monster's here! The darkman's here!
Now, all that remains, the demon, the prophet, and those chosen to survive.
So it's really, really weird to be reviewing The Stand, considering the, age of the coronavirus that we're living through. And I was watching a news report about New York City, and they have a hospital barge floating in front of the Statue of Liberty, and they have like a pop tent hospital in Central Park, and they have refrigerator trucks parked outside of hospitals because the morgues are full. And like, it made The Stand especially close to home for me upon this viewing. I had a real strong love for this movie. Like you said in the introduction of this, is just the ambition of it. The fact that they were doing The Stand by itself was exciting. I didn't care it was for network television. I just loved the story, and I thought it was great that they were doing it. And I thought that it was largely successful. But what was true then is true today, at least to me. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, Jason, but to me, I think it starts almost amazing, and it finishes almost terrible. And it's a sort of slow journey between those 2 points. I think that the adaptation is clear enough. I mean, Stephen King adapted and produced it. This was his baby. But it's tonally all over the place, and I do miss some of the darkness of the book. As far as adapting The Stand for network television in 1994, I think it's pretty impressive. As far as it being enjoyable to anybody who didn't watch it in 1994 and isn't a huge fan of the novel, I will say I'm a fan of this movie, but I'm guessing a lot of people wouldn't be. I don't want to be unkind to it. There's a lot of great stuff to say. I think it's a tricky adaptation. And at the time, since TV still had a stink on it, they didn't have the pick of the litter of Hollywood, so they ended up kind of casting interesting faces for some of these roles. But it's more interesting and cumulatively it's fascinating to see what they chose to keep and what they chose to throw away and who they cast as what. All of that stuff in the end might be more interesting to me than the actual experience of the movie itself. That's where I start with The Stand, and I know it seems brutal, but I'm actually going to be friendlier with it as we move forward. But that's kind of where I start.
Well, I listened back to my review of It, the miniseries It, on the very first episode I did with you. And I think I was a little bit harsh on It. And it's kind of transferable to The Stand in some ways, because for the limitations of network television in the 1990s, it is absolutely amazing what they were able to pull off.
Yes.
Again, naturally, I don't think Stephen King's work is great for network television, like the old network television before HBO and a million other groups started to get involved, and they could sort of they didn't have to worry about the F-bombs, and they would still allow a fair amount of violence in the 90s on television, but certainly not to the level of a Stephen King novel. So I think based on what they had, they did very well, and even visually, there's some things that which look really cheesy, and there's some other things that look quite good. I think the photography, the cinematography, for lack of a better term, for a TV miniseries works quite well. The makeup effects on the whole are pretty good. Some of the special effects are very dated. This rather large cast is a mixed bag.
Yes.
But I don't think it was a bottom of the barrel type of thing. There are some other casts I'm going to talk about where I think they were just trying to assemble the film in some way, but they weren't. They were probably in the C to D list as opposed to even the B list.
Yeah.
This was B with some touches of A. I think there's some A-listers who make cameos. I'm really happy Ed Harris has a nice little role in the first part.
Kathy Bates.
And Kathy Bates, yeah, as you said, Kathy Bates plays this radio DJ. I wasn't quite on board with like the character and some of what was going on there. It didn't quite make sense, but it was nice to see Kathy Bates as well as being kind of an allusion to other Stephen King adaptations, Misery and Dolores Claiborne.
Yeah, well, same thing with Ed Harris. He was in Needful Things, right? I feel like a lot of the cameos were winks.
Yeah. In more than one miniseries, I saw some things which reminded me a bit of Needful Things, the film version of Needful Things, which we reviewed on that first show I was on. So it was nice. I just always liked seeing Ed Harris. In some cases, though, when I would see some other casting, I would think, okay, could they maybe have had Ed Harris play that role instead of this person? And I'll tell you which one maybe later in the review there. I think a little bit of a coup is to get Gary Sinise. And I think Gary Sinise, the 90s were kind of the high mark for him as a film actor. And he's just a solid actor, and he's strong in here. I think he can sort of overcome some watered down or perhaps even, dare I say, bad writing at points. He really centers this 4-part miniseries quite well. And then there were a mixed bag of other actors that I remember liking back in the 90s. Maybe I don't like them as much now, but I still think they're worthwhile. Rob Lowe was pretty good. He was very much Rob Lowe is kind of a TV miniseries type of a casting choice, if you know what I'm saying.
He hadn't had his sort of renaissance as like a more of an actor. He was still sort of the character of Rob Lowe at the time. So seeing him play a role of a mute person and they call him deaf and dumb, which is so so rough.
So many things where you're just cringing now in 2020 with how
the language and just how they're treated. I guess I'll just do a little bit of service to the plot, because The Stand is such an ambitious book, and movie consequently. The first act of the story is the death of the civilized world. A super flu is released from a military installation, and it kills like 98% of the population of the globe very rapidly. The small groups of population that are left over find themselves drawn to these two different sides through the series of dreams. One group of people is being led to Vegas and this dark person named Randall Flagg, and another group is being led to Colorado and this sweet old woman, Mother Abigail, pardon me. And basically a miniature version of civilization starts to reform itself, and these two powers seem to have an inevitable conflict to play out. It's interesting because you talk about Stu Redman, the guy who sort of ties the whole thing together. Gary Sinise, you're right, rock solid, very watchable, very likable, and that's what you want out of Stu Redman. But the interesting thing for me, and I think one of the things that I really liked about the book, is that to me, Stu has no journey in this book at all. He starts the book a totally decent, good old boy, nice guy, and he ends the book a totally decent, good old boy, nice guy. And there's no real change to his character. He is like a complete baseline, right? We have like good and evil to the like left and right of him. But honestly, for me, the role of the entire, or the, like, it's not the main character, but the role, if I wanted to be in the movie, give me Larry Underwood. Larry Underwood is a musician and a drug addict and a person who uses people, and everything that we learn about Larry Underwood before the plague happens should tell us that he would be lured to the dark side, but he is not called to the dark side. He's called to the light side. And he has a journey as a character. Franny Goldsmith, here played by Molly Ringwald, and I know a lot of people roll their eyes when they hear the name Molly Ringwald, you know. She has a journey. She has this bun in the oven, and she doesn't know if the baby is going to live in the age of this plague. Like, and is she going to carry this baby to term only to have it die? And she has all these men that are interested in her, and does she want to be with them for the right reason, or is she just looking for a baby daddy? And like, how has the world... Basically, everybody has conflict, and everybody goes through changes in the story, except for Stu Redman. Stu Redman just remains a completely decent, good old boy. That's not a complaint about Gary Sinise. I think it's a genuine weakness of the story, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And so when I was talking about, I wasn't saying that that was the best character in either the novel or the miniseries, but I think as far as if they had grabbed somebody who was kind of hot at the time to be in this, it was Gary Sinise.
Yeah.
A character. Well, there's it's such a big novel to talk about. It's one of my favorite King novels. But it is in, you know,
it's
and
huge.
I've read the uncut one. It is a time commitment, but it is worth it. It's very much worth it. And I think it kind of is somewhat parallels the Dark Tower series in many ways, and in fact, characters from that are in this, as is the case with many Stephen King novels. But the character that I'm most interested in, I think, is Nadine Cross. Laura San Giacomo plays Nadine Cross. It's a really interesting character in some ways, because she is kind of on that wrestling with that dark side and the light side, and she can make a certain choice. What struck me, though, is the Underwood character, and I'm forgetting the actor's name who plays him. He's just absolutely horrible to her.
Adam Stork is the name of the actor. Sorry, Adam Stork is the name of the actor playing Larry Underwood in the series.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with him.
Yeah.
He, you know, the character is just absolutely horrible to her, and yet he's supposed to represent the good. And she ends up representing the evil, because she keeps having these dreams where she's having this amazing sex with Randall Flagg, you know, which they do in the best way they possibly can, in that kind of PG-ish, maybe a little bit more than PG-ish way in the mid-'90s for network television. But I like what she did. I think improvements could be made to all of these characters and most of the performances. But as far as liking a character, that's my favorite character in the book and in this. So
I am a big Lloyd fan. Miguel Ferrer, he plays him. He is in prison when the plague hits, and it's a really, really disturbing series of chapters in the book, as he sees what's happening going down, and he has to hoard food, and he ends up, you know, considering cannibalism or eating a rat, and, you know, Randall Flagg saves him from that fate. And he is 100% loyal to Randall Flagg from that. He doesn't care what happens going forward. He didn't have to starve to death surrounded by corpses. So he's on board. And I really felt like some genuine sympathy for that character, even though he does terrible things. Like, and it's interesting because he made the choice with Nadine, the Laura San Giacomo character you're talking about. I much more got the feeling like it was fate. She was the bride of the devil. She was going to be the mother of this Randall Flagg's, you know, child, and she had no say in it. She was just locked into that.
I just feel, I guess I felt a lot of sympathy for her character.
Yeah.
And kind of what ends up happening there. Miguel Ferrer, such a good actor.
Yep.
And that's no exception here. I think he has some of the weaker scenes as far as writing and perhaps direction. Mick Garris is the director of this. He's done a few Stephen King adaptations.
A lot of the TV stuff.
Very very serviceable director, but I'm not sure. I think somebody else could take this material and spin it into gold, horror gold, I think. So some of a little bit of play and the direction of the scenes. The scene that leads him into jail is kind of a really stupid bad bank robbery type of scene. The scene, and this wasn't again Ferrer's problem as much, but when he's released from jail, again, I might as well just get to it. Jamie Sheridan, I hated his performance. I don't think I was distracted about it back in '94. He was a character actor who I'd seen in a few things that I liked, so I was like, oh, that's fine, put him in there. Watching it now, he doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the acting ability, I don't think, or at least how the movie is cut. And he's certainly not evil enough to have the kind of weight that is needed to play this role. And that's the one where I'm like, okay, Ed Harris is in your miniseries. He probably would have cost too much money for the time. Ed Harris would have had a field day with that role. It would have been maybe one of Ed Harris's greatest performances. Why not have him play Randall Flagg instead? He plays a heck of a good villain.
Yeah, well, this is where we go to the ping-pong quality of some of the acting. Like, I like Gary Sinise a lot. I don't like Jamie Sheridan that much, right? I like Miguel Ferrer quite a bit. I'm not super big on Corin Nemec. I'm sorry, Parker Lewis Can't Lose fans. I think he's overdoing it a little bit, you know? What was the name of that actor that was in the Coach show who plays Tom Cullen? Bill.
Oh, that was awful. I mean, and I don't think it's the actor's fault in that case.
You know, Bill Fagerbakke. I don't know if I'm saying that well at all. That character is highly problematic, and the fact that he gets partnered with Nick Andros, who, you know, is deaf and dumb, as they keep on reminding us, it makes it this kind of post-apocalyptic odd couple that's a little bit kind of cringy. And again, just the whole use of like Tom Cullen and his disability kind of rubs me the wrong way in the book and this. I mean, I know I have my own sort of personal hang-ups with it, but it's just over and above my own hang-ups. It just seems kind of lazy and on the nose, and like, I don't know.
We talked about that with Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
How problematic the Donnie Wahlberg character is in that, and it felt like this. Even though that one is a professionally made feature film, I will take The Stand any day of the week and Twice on Sunday over that. They are similar types of problematic characters, I think, which is a bit more than a bit on Stephen King too, I think.
The weirder stuff is like when there's some actors that I actually like generally that I don't like in this. Shawnee Smith shows up in this movie. She was like in the Blob remake and some of the Saw movies. And I've always kind of liked her. I think like she's got decent game as an actress. She's terrible in the movie. She's playing like a one-dimensional Stephen King villain, but she is terrible in the movie. Ray Walston is an actor that I always like. Glenn Bateman has some of the cheesiest dialogue in like any King movie. Yeah. And that's one thing that I just can't let go for this Stand movie is when it miscues with some of the emotional scenes, it miscues really badly. Like, really badly. The ending of this series, these are 4 90-minute episodes, and the last 10 minutes have you almost wanting to throw shit at it. Like, this is very much one of these places where it's about the journey. The path that leads us to the end of this is quite entertaining, but the end, I agree with the rest of the world, I think is largely disappointing. I've always really liked The Stand, but The Stand could never be one of my favorite King novels because even more so than it, I think the third act kind of derails it. But there's so many great isolated pockets throughout it. In the novel, there's chapters dedicated to people who survived the plague, but died on the way to the certain destination that by themselves are these horrifying isolated short stories. Like, the world is so huge and well imagined that I like the premise more than I like the finished story.
That's where a TV series would be amazing,
right?
Because you could have these.
It could keep going.
Episodes about these characters, but when time is a factor for, even if you did like a feature film and 3 sequels or something like that to this, I still think you wouldn't be able to cover it as well as a TV series could. There are the extended cameos that work really well. As you mentioned, Whoopi Goldberg is going to be playing the Mother Abigail role. I think Ruby Dee is amazing in this. Maybe I'm overselling that performance, but I like the different notes she's playing. She serves the story well, and it made me miss how good she was.
The old age makeup was...
Ozzie Davis, her husband, are in there. They did a lot of Spike Lee movies together, and I liked what Ruby Dee did a bit more than... I think Ozzie Davis is kind of wasted playing that judge character, but it was still nice to see him in there.
I liked Ruby Dee in it. I think her makeup was a little plastic looking at times, but again, I sort of just write that off as sort of the TV and the time it was made.
Well, Ray Walston, I'm glad you mentioned him. He was kind of an exposition machine.
Right.
There was nothing to it, and I have Ray Walston in my miniseries. I'm going to give him something to do. And I've never seen him as an over actor, but some of these takes, he's really playing it a bit big, and I don't know if that's... I'm kind of blaming, again, Garris for that one, that he maybe should have done... Let's try that one more time, and just a touch less. I think a couple notches less would have been fine. I mean... you can't do much about being the exposition machine in something like this. That goes to the writing. But
no, and Stephen King just writes, it would be like saying, hey, Trash Can Man, Matt Frewer, can you dial it back? Well, no. Look at the page. Look at the lines. Look at what I'm being asked to say. Of course I'm over the top. How else do you approach it? But I think that in this case, as much as I'm a Stephen King fanboy, the problem is Stephen King. If someone other than Stephen King was adapting this, they would have taken all of those lame Stephen King lines that you autocorrect for while you read the book and put them into lines that make sense coming out of an actor's mouth. That seems incredibly unkind to say, but you can tell bad dialogue. That Shining remake that Mick Garris directed has some brutal dialogue in it. It's not just Steven Weber isn't the same measure of talent as Jack Nicholson, but the words that he's asked to say. And when this movie, like I said, when it miscues hard. At the end of the movie, when Franny's baby is born and she survives, and there's a superimposed vision of Mother Abigail looking over the baby, it is hilariously terrible. It is gobsmackingly holy shit. This is the climax. This is what I waited 6 hours for. This is throw something at the TV aggravating. And yet there you go. Yeah, I still give a guilty pleasure pass to The Stand, but with the caveat, go in as a Stephen King fan and knowing that the book has the balls cut out of it because it's a TV environment. The story's there, in a very bare bones kind of way.
This is one I'm probably grading on the curve if you want. I'm with you. It is a positive review for me, but there are some things in that 8 hours or less than 8 hours which are jaw-droppingly bad.
Yeah, and
there are some things that I think are decent and probably better than they have any right to be. I'm a little bit kinder on some of these miniseries you mentioned, and I remember hearing your review of the Shining that King did, the miniseries Shining. I like it a lot more than you do.
Right.
But I do understand that King, when it comes to dialogue, it's rough going, and it's less rough going in here. But there are some bits which are just really strange. there's the one about when it is quite a good sequence and kind of scary sequence when Gary Sinise in the first part escapes where he's been quarantined.
Yeah.
But he comes across this emaciated man who has some stupid line about chicken. You know
Have
what I'm
some
talking about?
chicken with me, darling. It's so dark.
Yeah, and that something like that completely ruins any sort of intensity of what's happened in the previous, 3-4 minutes before the end of that scene. But I think there's enough in here to like. I am looking forward to a remake of this, but
for sure.
I always get excited about these things and then I end up being disappointed. So we'll see.